Picture this. You're standing knee-deep in a shallow river in East Africa, thousands of years before anything you'd call civilization exists. You haven't eaten in almost 2 days. Then you look down. Fish. Dozens of them, drifting lazily in the shallows, close enough to touch. A single thought forms in your mind, one of the oldest thoughts a human has ever had. How do I get one of those? You'd think someone just figured it out one day. A single flash of genius, passed down through the generations. That assumption is wrong. Fishing wasn't invented in a single moment. It was built, piece by piece, over nearly 2 million years by several different species that came before us, some of them barely resembling humans at all. Understanding how fishing developed is really understanding how the human brain itself developed. Start at the very beginning. The oldest sign of a hominin catching fish doesn't belong to modern humans. It belongs to Homo habilis, a small-brained ancestor that lived in East Africa long before Homo sapiens existed. Researchers digging at Kubifora, near Lake Turkana in Kenya, uncovered fish remains mixed in with Homo habilis bones, dated to roughly 1.95 million years old. There were no hooks, no spears, no nets. Just hands, and a shallow pool where the fish had nowhere left to run. Most researchers agree this wasn't skill. It was opportunity. When rivers dried up in the dry season, fish became trapped in shrinking pools, easy enough for a hungry hominin to scoop out by hand. Simple as it sounds, this single behavior may have quietly reshaped the human brain. Here's why. Fish, especially fatty fish, are rich in omega-3 fats and DHA, the exact building blocks the brain needs to grow. Roughly 60% of your brain is made of fat, and a large share of it depends on nutrients that show up almost nowhere except rivers, lakes, and coastlines. This is the foundation of what some scientists call the aquatic ape hypothesis, the idea that human intelligence didn't develop chasing prey across open grassland, but sitting quietly at the water's edge. It's still debated, but the pattern in the fossil record is hard to ignore. Fast forward to Blombau's Cave on the southern coast of South Africa. Around 160,000 years ago, early humans were harvesting shellfish there. Mussels, whelks, abalone, again and again, at the same time each year. That's not scavenging. That requires memory. It requires planning ahead. It's the first hint of a mind that could organize the future instead of just reacting to the present. Then came the shift from grabbing to hunting. Humans took the same wooden spears used for deer and antelope and pointed them at the water instead. Stand still. Watch. Strike. By around 90,000 years ago, burial sites in southern Africa contained something new. Barbed harpoon points, carved from bone, designed so a struggling fish couldn't slip free underwater. That barb is the whole story in miniature. Somebody noticed a problem, the fish kept escaping, and built a solution. That's the line between instinct and invention. For decades, archaeologists assumed the fish hook was a fairly recent idea, maybe 12,000 years old. Then came Jerimalai, a cave site in East Timor. Buried inside were the remains of nearly 3,000 fish, tuna, sharks, rays, parrotfish, and 2 small broken hooks carved from sea snail shell dated to between 23,000 and 16,000 years old. The oldest fishing hooks ever discovered. Here's the part that stuns researchers. Tuna don't hang around the shore. They live far out in open water. Catching one 23,000 years ago meant you needed a hook, a line, likely a boat, and enough accumulated knowledge to know where in the open ocean to look. Archaeologist Sandra Baudler has pointed out that what shows up at Jerimalai isn't a rough first attempt. It's a fully developed fishing system, already refined, which means somewhere in the gap between a Homo habilis grabbing fish barehanded and a fisherman off the coast of East Timor pulling in tuna, an enormous amount of quiet trial and error had already happened. The hook answered one question: how do you catch a fish you can see? The net answered a harder one: how do you catch fish you can't see at all? In Korea, archaeologists have found small stone weights carved with grooves, made to anchor the bottom edge of a fishing net, dated to around 27,000 years ago. The net itself is long gone. Plant fiber doesn't survive tens of thousands of years, but the stones do, and those grooves tell you everything about what once existed around them. Twisted fiber cord, floats along the top, weights spaced with intention, and someone who understood exactly when and where to cast it. That's not survival anymore. That's a system. So when did fishing really begin? It depends on what you're asking. If you mean the first time something resembling a human reached into water and pulled out a fish, that happened close to 2 million years ago, by a creature that would barely recognize you as kin. But if you mean the moment humans had assembled the full toolkit, hooks, nets, boats, and the knowledge of seasons and tides, that story was already complete by around 40,000 years ago, and maybe earlier. Fishing, in other words, was never invented. It was accumulated. One generation added a barb, another added a hook, another figured out how to weigh down a net. Slowly, without ever meaning to, an ordinary act of hunger turned into one of the oldest technologies humans still use today. The fish in that river never changed. What changed was the mind staring down at them. So here's a question worth sitting with. Out of everything early humans pulled from the water, which fish do you think became their favorite? Drop your guess in the comments below.